Crime on the rise. A wife and daughter violently assaulted. Incompetent police. A wronged everyday man taking matters into his own hands. All this can only mean one thing. We're comparing Death Wish on this episode of Retro vs. Remake.
I'm Reggie Parker.
And I'm Dan Bulick. Welcome to another episode of
Retro versus Remake,
where we discuss films and their remakes. Join us as we explore the question, should this remake exist? Today's film is Death Wish. The original Death Wish, 1974, starring Charles Bronson, Hope Lang, Vincent Gardenia, Jeff Goldblum, Christopher Guest, and Stephen Keats. Directed by Michael Winner. Screenplay by Wendell Mays. Music by Herbie Hancock. Death Wish 2018, starring Bruce Willis, Elizabeth Shue, Vincent D'Onofrio, Dean Norris, Kimberly Elise, and Bo Knapp. Directed by Eli Roth. Screenplay by Joe Carnahan. Music by Ludwig Göransson. The original is loosely based on the 1972 novel of the same name by Brian Garfield. And I guess before we get into our first experiences, I just wanted to note the cast here. The original has Vincent Gardenia and Christopher Guest, who were both in the remake of Little Shop of Horrors, which we last did. And the remake has Kimberly Elise, who you might remember from the remake of The Manchurian Candidate. She was the FBI girl that sort of dated Denzel there. I just thought it was pretty interesting that we have 3 alumni from previous episodes. Anyways, Reggie, what is your first experience with either film?
First experience with either film is for this podcast.
Same.
It's like I know Charles Bronson, and I knew he was a big action star, but I really haven't watched a lot of his work, so this was my introduction.
Yeah, I had known about the Death Wish franchise. Like, I think they had a Death Wish movie on like every weekend on Channel 11 when I was growing up. It was, there's like 50 of these Death Wish movies. I knew that. I just had never seen them. I knew who Charles Bronson was kind of through The Simpsons. They did a lot of Charles Bronson references. But this is the first time I've actually seen him act. And I didn't even know the remake existed until I looked up a list of remakes for this series. So, yep.
I was familiar with the remake's existence. We'll definitely talk more about that throughout the episode.
Well, they're fairly similar films, but before we get into a comparison, let's go over the synopsis. Crime is on the rise. Police are doing what they can, but it's not enough. We are introduced to Paul Kersey and his family. They're a loving family and are well off financially. Their wealth does not go unnoticed. One day when Paul is at work, his wife and daughter are violently assaulted by criminals in their home. The daughter is wounded pretty bad, and the wife is murdered. The police investigate, but they aren't sure they will find the ones responsible. That's not good enough for Paul Kersey. He decides to take matters into his own hands. His plan? Go out on the streets at night and fight crime, despite the fact that he is just an ordinary man. The result? Criminals are violently killed as Kersey acts as judge, jury, and executioner. He is able to kill criminals without getting caught or even identified. He's simply an unknown vigilante. The police now focus on finding this vigilante. The news is spreading and everyone learns about Kersey's actions. Kersey continues to kill criminals. Eventually, the police get close on Kersey's trail, and depending on the film, Kersey stops being the vigilante for various reasons. Both films end with Kersey in a new city with his sights on new criminals. I did like the way both movies ended with sort of the pantomiming the gunshot. I thought that was cool. Anyway, those are the films. Where should we start, Reggie?
The best place to start, because these films, really, these are action movies, and every action movie has an action hero. And the best place to start is to talk about Paul Kersey. The original 1974 movie starring Charles Bronson. What's your take on Bronson's leading man, Dan?
Well, Reggie, I had never seen him in any film before, and I suppose as an action star, he's okay. As an actor, kind of flat. He definitely didn't know how to show the grieving process, I suppose, when his family was attacked. I did find myself laughing a little bit at the way
I
he.
don't think men grieved in the 70s.
That's true. So maybe he was appropriate of the times. I guess he's okay. I didn't really notice anything other than the fact that Jesus Christ, he's ripped. Like he has his shirt off in a couple scenes, and you're like, this dude's 50? What do I got to do to look that good at like not even 50? Like how do I look that good now? It's like Jesus. He has definitely the physique of an action star. Acting's a little flat, but I guess he was okay overall.
I agree that from like an emotional standpoint, there's not a lot to cling on with him. And yeah, I would say flat sort of emphasizes that character throughout the film. While all the, like you said, when the family dies, he doesn't really hold his grief well as he's getting into his sort of vigilante adventure. I don't know, it just never seems like it gets his pulse racing. You know, he just seems like, yeah, I shot that guy and now I'm going back home. Like it just, I never really felt like he was portraying action as a character.
I could see that. I mean, he did throw up after his first murder, so you did see a bit of humanity in, taking the life of another person. But, just from a pure acting aesthetic or whatever, yeah, you don't really get much from him. And yeah, you're right. He isn't really scared at all ever, or he's pretty confident in what he's doing. Well, he has a death wish, right? So it's not maybe he doesn't even need to necessarily kill these guys. It's either them or me. Maybe that's the whole point. Yeah, it's kind of a okay performance, I guess, overall from what I'm getting from Charles Bronson. But what did you think about Bruce Willis over there in the remake, Reggie?
I found it to somehow be even flatter. Like,
That's funny because like when I was watching it, I was like, okay, Charles Bronson, pretty flat with his emotion. Let's see how Bruce Willis does. Wow, perfect casting for a remake. Pretty flat in his emotion
I mean,
delivery and
it
everything.
almost feels like he's sleepwalking through all this stuff. He's doing that classic Bruce Willis kind of. He's got the squint going on, like the pain face. He's just like walking around. Yeah, what do you, my daughter and my stuff, and you're telling me there's not enough police? Like he's upset about a lot of things. Here's the thing about the Bruce Willis one, right? Like you're talking about Charles Bronson, he's ripped, and I kind of get how that guy is, able to go out and be a vigilante. Bruce Willis is a suburban dude. We'll get into jobs later, but he's a suburban guy. There's no indication of why he would be capable of doing this, and he just kind of, I don't know, he just keeps gaining more skills through YouTube. Like I don't understand why he's able to do what he's able to do, and I don't buy him, at least as the character, because I mean we bought Bruce Willis as an action star for years. I don't buy this particular character being a badass.
I think part of it is you buy it because it is Bruce Willis. I think you kind of nailed it right there. The only reason you're able to go for the ride in the remakes because it's Bruce Willis. So his inadequacies as a fighter or defender or vigilante are made up because it's Bruce Willis playing the role. So you just go along for the ride. But I think you're right. There's not much in his background or what his character does at all to sort of justify him being able to do what he does, as opposed to Charles Bronson. We can get into their backgrounds a little bit. So Charles Bronson, he's a war vet from the Korean War. And as far as I know, they don't say anything about Bruce Willis having any fighting or any training with a gun at all, right?
No, he pretty much, and I mean, even one of the scenes, because Bruce Willis cuts his hand in one of the scenes because he's holding the gun wrong.
Right.
So the slide comes back and he injures himself. So he's just learning everything on the fly. He's clearly not even that good at it. He kind of just goes from being, I don't know how to hold the gun, to some of the other scenes that we see and different abilities that make zero sense for both these characters. In this case, Charles Bronson is an architect in New York City. He's got a pretty nice white collar job. He's got a lot of money. As you said in the synopsis, that's why his family's targeted. Bruce Willis, who plays a surgeon in the film, and yeah, right, buying that as well is kind of tough. But
yeah, I was kind of hoping for a little more Bruce Willis to say like ER talk, but they spared us of that, which probably is for the best.
I mean, to talk about the character, he's talking kind of like he's a Chicago cop, and he's a surgeon. Like he doesn't say anything that like makes me think he's a doctor.
That he's opened up a medical book ever.
He makes not one medical reference, like a real one, throughout the film. And it's odd to say the least.
Yeah, even when he's sealing up his wounds, like he doesn't use anything out of like the ordinary. That's too crazy, you know? Like nothing that an ordinary person couldn't figure out for themselves.
Yeah, and I think it's a missed opportunity because uh, in the first film, Charles Bronson, yeah, he's an architect, but when push comes to shove, you find out that he was a veteran of the Korean War. He was a conscientious objector, which adds to his character as well. That like he didn't agree with the war and kind of pushed back while still being a soldier. But like we now understand why he's able to shoot a gun. You know that little thing right there lets you know that he's capable with weaponry. So that helps, you know. And then you're looking at Bruce Willis, and it's like, all right, you don't have that type of background with any sort of gun experience. At least sort of lean into the medical thing. Like, there's could have been different things. You could have had almost like a Breaking Bad thing where he's like mixing things
Yeah.
together and using medical skills to like help. I mean, there's one torture scene where he kind of talks about it, but like he could have found that on YouTube.
And just going back to that, like it's funny because we said before that Charles Bronson, after his first murder, he got very sick and threw up, and he's a war vet, so he's seen that shit. Bruce Willis never seen anything like that. After his first murders, he's fine.
Fine,
You know, walked it off.
no problem. Again, that like you said, as much as we were saying Charles Bronson's take was flat, the character development, maybe this is a script thing over the acting itself, like the character development makes sense to me. So it builds out this humanitarian character who's like, yes, I am skilled, but I don't like to do this. So when he kills someone and he's affected that way, it makes sense because he never really wanted to go into battle per se.
Mm-hmm.
And here he is, circumstances in his life are pushing him in this direction. And you get a little bit of resistance there that makes sense for a guy who just makes his 9 to 5 as an architect. And now he's out in the streets, like, you know, fighting guys and like shooting people. Like there's a progression that happens with that character that makes sense. Whereas Bruce Willis, he's mad, he's out there, and it doesn't matter what crime it is. I'm just gonna shoot the guy, and I have no problem with doing it. I don't lose any sleep. You know, the bad guys deserve it more or less.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this as you were saying it because Bruce Willis could have had a really good arc because he's a doctor, you know, trained his whole life to heal people, and now everything's been flipped around. Now he has to kill people. It's just a
Right.
really interesting arc if you think about it, but they don't do anything with that in the movie at all.
The closest thing, and it's lazy, is the split screen where you see him like picking up medical tools, and then in his like private life, he's like putting together guns. So instead of scalpels and gauze, it's you know bullets and clips, and it's like it actually bothered me to see that juxtaposition because again, he's supposed to you know follow like this like Hippocratic oath. It's insane that he's just out there actively killing people when his job is you know, ethical and saving lives. And he, I don't know, without enough push, I understand the family element, but there's not more to it to make that feel right. You know?
Right. Or he doesn't, there's no sign of resistance from him. Like, it just seems so natural for him. Yeah, I was saving people, now I'm killing people. There should have been something more, like we had from Charles Bronson, that little bit of resistance, at least physically. Like, something, give us something to show us that this is not easy for you, that this isn't just, yeah, I'm just an action star, so of course I can kill people like this. No, you're a doctor. Show us what it's like for a doctor to go from saving people to now having to kill people.
100%. You know, when we're talking about motivation, I think it's important for us to talk about setting. Charles Bronson's living in New York City in the 1970s. If you know anything about that city during that era, New York was a tough, tough place. Like, you got films like Taxi Driver that show this, like, seedy, dirty, crime-ridden city, and there were real problems. Like you did not want to be in Times Square at that time. You know, it was a dangerous place.
Yeah, man, the subways just full of crime.
You have that setting versus Bruce Willis in Chicago, and you know, 20, let's just say anywhere between 2016, 2018. You know, Chicago has a lot of issues, a lot of crime, gangs, a lot of inner city violence. I don't know, like the way the movies portray those different settings. Again, when we're talking about character motivation, makes sense to me that Charles Bronson is in sort of the situation that he's in. You know, he's in a crime-ridden city. You know, there's these street punks that notice his family. They basically follow him and try to rob him. Makes sense. the other side, Chicago. I mean, he's a doctor in Chicago. He's not in like the South Side. He's not in a community where there's gang violence. So this violence, though there is violence in Chicago, is completely unrelated
Yeah.
to the,
Definitely a lot more random in the remake.
it, it's like, all right, these are like sophisticated criminals. They have like a crime ring that like decided to hit you up because it looked like you had some money when you were parking your car with a valet. Again, Charles Bronson, Bad City, this shit is happening all over the place. Bruce Willis, you can be insulated from this type of violence, and this is not Chicago violence, as it's portrayed in like the media that's affecting him. This is like organized crime, very different than street punks that are running rampant. The motivation is completely off kilter, in my opinion, when you think about it from that setting.
Yeah, Chicago today is much safer than New York was in the 70s, hands
Absolutely,
down.
absolutely. Not downplaying any of the problems there, but like, come on. For him to shift again from this thing happened to my family to now I'm going to fight organized crime, or not organized crime, but like just fight crime in general. It just feels a little misguided when you look at it from that perspective.
And I just want to add a little thing. Bruce Willis's family, pretty rich, modern day. They don't have a security alarm.
Dan, you're saying some things that
My
I
tone's all wrong.
I was thinking about it as I was watching the film, and I'm like, you haven't beefed up your security since then? You didn't get a dog? You didn't like, like I don't know. Like there's so many things he could do. He's rich.
Yeah,
I mean, he is rich. So private security, security system, alarms, cameras,
yeah.
all these things are available to you, and we know that because it's a modern film.
Yeah, and even your doorbell has a camera these days. They have nothing,
Dan,
and
my
they're
doorbell
rich.
has a camera. I'm saying like, yeah, my doorbell has a camera.
Yeah,
I think that in that situation, and maybe because of how violent the crime was, I can see someone getting pushed into a corner and feeling like this is what they need to do. But there's also this idea that like also with your resources, make sure that your home is secure because that's really the root of his problem. It's not the street crime, it's his own home defenses are lacking.
hmm
But he's like extrapolated this to all of the city. He hasn't done the bare minimum in his own life to try to mitigate this, which is why later in the film we see basically the same thing happening.
we'll
You
get
know?
to that when we talk about the
Well,
endings. But yeah, the remake definitely reaches a lot further for, I guess, setting to say how bad the crime is than the original does. The original is definitely more reflective of the times than the remake, hands down.
and by being reflective of the time, it feels more authentic. I understand Charles Bronson's motivation, even if he sometimes may struggle with showing me his motivation.
Well said. So we talked about their backgrounds. We talked about what they currently did. And let's talk about their motivations for becoming this vigilante, or just what drives them exactly as they're out at night taking out these criminals. So the original Paul Kersey, he doesn't really have, I guess, a focus, right? He just wants to stop crime because, like we said, there's just so much crime in his city. Nobody's doing anything about it. The cops are like, they seem helpless. So he's going to go out at night and just start shooting criminals, taking them off the streets. But Bruce Willis's Kersey, he's a little more focused. His motivation is about avenging his family. What did you think about the remake refocusing the motivation of Paul Kersey?
I think that for a modern film audience, I think that it's a smart choice. The way people are used to engaging in movies now, you have the big bad guys. You kind of want to see if it is a revenge plot, which this is. You want to see the actual revenge. So by focusing on the criminals, I think that that was a positive choice. In the same breath, I will say that how he's getting his clues is problematic for me, to say the least, as an audience member.
I'll build on that. I like the fact that the original, that he is just kind of going out and just taking out random crime, because it was a random act of violence that happened to his families in both movies. So he doesn't know anything. The police don't know anything. He has nothing to go on. And he's a normal dude. He's not a cop. He doesn't know how to look up clues or follow forensics or anything like that. So he's
Mhm.
just gonna go out in the streets and just he's gonna throw whatever he's got out there, whatever sticks is what he's gonna go with. It makes sense that you would want that focus of I'm gonna avenge my family and then have them avenged, but the odds of a normal man doing that without any skill set to do that are just so small. It's more realistic of the original to just have him going out there and just all right. I'm gonna kill everybody because I don't know how else to avenge my family because I can't find these three random guys.
Yeah,
So I
it's a human,
like the original for doing that.
absolutely. It's a human story. It's a person that feels helpless. He's had this horrible thing happen to him. In a way, he's lashing out. He's lashing out, and it's like you said, it's unfocused because why would it be focused? Like, he's got nothing to go on, like you mentioned. It starts with this thing where whether it's self defense or looking to, just take a stand as he's going through this sort of vigilante justice, he finds out that he likes it. That's a very interesting character arc. I do like the fact that it's more, just sort of random because it feels, again, I think I'm going to use this word a lot. It just feels a little more authentic. So even in a kind of dumb sort of beat 'em up, shoot 'em up film, there's just more to go on for the character in this particular situation. The Bruce Willis stuff feels formulaic, like
Yeah.
you need to hit these beats in a movie for it to be an action film. That's how it feels. And I think the character gets lost in that because it's just too much random circumstance for him to just happen across all these clues that somehow all tie back into the people that did this.
Yeah, it's complete accident. Like I'd say 90% of the things that he finds to lead him to his family's killers. It's insane, just random happenstance. And
Oh, that guy's gun fell off a gurney.
yeah,
Well,
oh, this guy in the hospital is has my watch. She just happens to be wearing the same watch
yeah.
that I was wearing.
And
It's
I
like,
happen to be the surgeon that's
yeah,
working on it today.
exactly.
Come on.
Yeah, I know. It's too neat of a package in the remake. All of that happens. Like he not only like has this mission to like find his family's killers, but he finds them all like just so easily by complete random happenstance. And it's just like the universe just throws everything at him and he's like, "Okay,
Yeah.
thanks universe." It's again just going back to that authenticity. If your family was killed and you have no skills in investigating or just doing any forensics things and you wanted to just fight crime, you would probably just go out there and just go fight criminals so nobody else would have to go through what you're going through. If you could find your family's killers, that's great, but the odds of you finding them are so small that it feels fake if you actually do find them. Like it's the odds of you actually finding them are just not possible.
Yeah, the odds are super low. I would rather there had been some sort of clue that the cops missed in the home that he like found that led him somewhere, but like versus like, oh, I'm working on the dude that stole my watch. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Not only are this happenstance, happening to him, the level that this crime ring goes up is in insane.
Yeah.
I mean, you might as well be like, Jimmy Hoffa killed you. Like, what?
Yeah, right.
He unwinds a very intricate crime ring. This guy.
Yeah, this random doctor who's never done anything like this in his entire life has just done what the Chicago Police Department couldn't do their whole tenure.
And the movie's kind of hitting you over the head. And I don't want to get into too many extra characters, but like when he goes to his wife's funeral, was that like the dad or something like that?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you who that old man was too. I have no idea because you see him once and he's gone. Never see him again.
But like you got this old man, and again, I get what the scene is for. Everyone's angry. They talk about like basically like religion, like a plan, and why would a god let something like this happen? But the guy just like comes off the road and like shoots at like I don't know.
Just came from a funeral. He's shooting guns at random dudes on his farm. Okay.
And like the line, the police, they're not going to come till after the crime. A man's got to take care of his own. And it's just like it's so like heavy-handed and over the top. What part of Chicago are they in that there's
A
like a farm?
farm.
I just thought about that for the first time just now. And
Yeah, I did, as did I. So yeah.
I think we would have been remiss to leave out the fact that part of Bruce Willis's motivation is an angry dude at his wife's funeral had a very macho line about a man protecting his own. I guess helped push him in the direction of being a vigilante as well. So another one of those like weird MacGuffins that's just in the movie. It's supposed to be character development, but it just led to more confusion, in my opinion. I still don't know who that guy was.
I'm kind of with you. He's either his dad or his wife's dad, and it's just that scene's just in there so you can see the light switch turn on in Bruce Willis's head. Oh yeah, the police won't do anything. I have to take matters into my own hands, just like this old man did. See, moving the plot forward. That's what that whole scene was. Not terribly great. Anyway, let's move on to some of the unique methods of attacks that are Paul Kersey's take on before we move on. They're both pretty comical, in my opinion, some of these scenes. So let's just talk about the original before Paul Kersey gets his gun on. What's his original weapon there, Reggie?
Well, I believe he takes a stocking. Well, first, I think he goes down to his local bank and gets himself about $20 worth of pennies. They're rolled up.
I think they were quarters, Reggie.
Oh, they are
A
quarters.
much
Okay.
harder hitting coin, if I may say so.
That is a harder coin. So he takes a bunch of rolled up quarters, stuffs them into a stocking, and this is a weapon that people use.
It's kind of
Yeah,
like a Full Metal Jacket with the soap and the towels, right?
yeah, I forget what the official name of that particular impromptu weapon is. It does have a name, but quarters in a stocking, and that's he's just walking the street, and if anyone messes with him, he's going to turn around and thwap. That weapon makes a thwap sound, just so you know.
Yeah.
That was such a weird.
There were, it was a very weird scene. There was two muggers, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I believe so.
He fought off two muggers with knives, most likely. A lot of these muggers have knives in the original. So, two guys with knives got scared off by an old man and a sock full of quarters. Yes.
Yep.
That happened. I don't know if that's my favorite part about that, or it might be after his successful fighting of crime. Afterwards, he goes home and just starts swinging that sock like a madman in his own
Yeah.
home, destroying various pieces of furniture.
Just just to bring back, I'm looking at my notes. The weapon is basically what's called a blackjack. When you take a sock and two rolls of quarters. You know what? In this one, I think it was one mugger. So let's give a little bit of credit to the film. I think it was one mugger based on the note that I'm looking at here. But yeah, he goes home and he's like practicing his mugger attacks. You
No,
know,
no, 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 Reggie. I have in my notes they both run away. So I'm gonna go with that. There were two. And if we're wrong, people, let us know who's wrong. I'm going with two. There's two muggers.
I like this game. I think there's one. Yeah, you're right. That scene is hilarious when he goes back and he's like hitting his couch and stuff like that.
He's just
Like
swinging it like Lasso in his house, just going nuts.
again, that shows you once again there's a ramp up here. You know, there's all right. We start with our improvised weapons. We move on in the way he gets his gun. I think matters as well. Should we talk about that?
Sure.
So his boss is because it's the '70s and people don't understand mental health. Paul, you seem just really down about your family murdered and assaulted. Hey, why don't you get some fresh air? You know, we're gonna send you to Tucson, Arizona. And yeah, because he's an architect and he's gonna go make a deal in Tucson. If if you didn't tell me they were in Arizona, I would have thought it was Texas.
Oh yeah.
This guy's the 10-gallon hat he's walking around. Oh, you city folk are soft. You know, he introduces Paul the idea that guns are pretty cool. And it's in that scene where we do learn that Paul's a veteran of the Korean War. He's basically gifted a gun by this guy he's trying to make a real estate deal with. You know, he goes back to New York City with a Glock.
Right. In his suitcase, just able to check it in, no problem at security.
Well, the bullets were separate from the gun, so if you recall,
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that makes it better, Dan.
Can you
Yeah,
wait? Can you do that? Can you gift a gun? I mean, I know you. I don't think you can do that today, but could you ever gift a gun?
I don't know enough about that. I bet you could.
That sounds illegal to me.
It sounds illegal, and it does introduce me to one of my issues with the original. Since we're talking about it, not cool to take a guy's registered weapon and go on a vigilante shooting spree in New York City.
We
That's
traced the bullets back to a guy in Arizona. Got it. We found our guy. He's a cowboy. All right.
makes sense. Cowboys, vigilantes, got it. The movie didn't really explore that, but that was one of those things. If we're going to be fair to both films, that was one of those things that was in my head. Like, that's not a smart plan.
No, it was not.
But he doesn't really have smart plans.
Yeah, well, like we said, he's just gonna go out there, just shoot whoever the fuck is out there.
Just another scene where we learn more about the character and his war background. We learn that he actually knows how to shoot a gun because he's shooting at a target range. And we have clearly the moment where this is going to ramp up. You know, he didn't really seek this out. He didn't know that he had a gun, but now he does. And it just elevates the stakes so much more. And we get that nice little ramp up in the film, as opposed to like Bruce Willis, where he's got the scene where he gets beat up by some like street toughs, and then next thing you know, he's looking to buy a gun. But the process is too hard, man.
No, I don't think it was the process. I think he saw the cameras and he realized that it could come back to him. And if he's going to be a vigilante, that's a no-no. So he wanted to acquire a gun, probably through illegal means. Maybe if he got it as a gift, he would have been fine. But he did not get it as a gift. But it's a good thing he's a doctor, Reggie, because luckily, a man who was shot, most likely a criminal, who was shot, had a gun on him when he's brought to the hospital, and the police did not remove it. They
No,
kept it on his person,
that's
and
right.
it fell to the ground. Nobody saw it among
Sure did.
all these doctors, and luckily Bruce Willis just kicked it away so he could pick it up later, and that's how he gets his gun. I don't know which one's worse, dude. Like they're
Oh,
both
that
pretty.
one's worse, Dan. Because now you gotta answer your question in a 2018 film where he's getting his bullets.
Yeah,
They don't answer that question, but you gotta ask it if you're thinking about it. Because like, how many bullets does this guy have in this gun that he just picked up in the hospital? And if he runs out of bullets, where is he getting them from?
it's not like he's only using his gun when he's fighting crime. He's practicing a lot in that garage or whatever, and he's doing a lot of target practice stuff. So he's using a lot of bullets. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure it was just a gun with one clip. So he definitely had to go out to wherever and buy more, right?
You got stocked up, which would kind of lead you back to, well, that's neither here nor there. Like looking at that scene, since we did talk about the old man scene, wouldn't it have been better that the old guy shoots at people trying to steal from his farm? He does his whole speech about being a tough guy and a man's got to have a gun. Why doesn't he just give Bruce Willis a gun?
Yeah, that's what I thought was going to happen. Like,
That would make the movie feel a lot better than the gun fell off the gurney.
and you know what they could have done too, because he's an old dude. He could have been like, "Oh, this is my war buddy's gun. Gave it to me, and now you can have it." Right?
Call
So
back.
then it's not traceable. Back to Bruce Willis. There you go. Bam. We just rewrote that so much better.
I mean, if you're gonna film that scene, you should do that thing. Like it shouldn't fall off of a gurney. Like that doesn't.
Yeah.
This is not a good way to introduce the gun.
It can make so much sense to be like, "What about you? Do you have a gun?" You'd be like, "Well, no." Well, here, take this one. Bam. So easy.
And it's in line with the original film where the Ames character in Tucson is telling him how great guns are, and then gives him a gun.
The idea that you're in this hospital surrounded by doctors, and I'm assuming police, and then that a gun can fall to the ground, and you're the only one that notices it, and the cops aren't going to be looking for this gun, right? Because they got shot at. They're going to be looking for the suspect's gun. If I'm a cop and it's like, uh-oh, I can't find the gun, maybe one of the doctors took it, the movie's over. You got caught.
Yeah, I guess let's tie this all back in.
Okay. Yeah.
I think really what we're saying here is that again, Paul Kersey, we're getting this introduction with the blackjack that he makes himself. Then he's gifted a gun, and that sort of begins his entire vigilantism. Bruce Willis, he gets his gun in a different, strange way, but
Again, it's another random happenstance that happens to him. Like, so much of the remake is just so random. He randomly finds his gun.
sorry about that diatribe about the gun, but kind of bringing it back to the methods of attack. Of course, we have our the blackjack scene, but now we both characters have guns. Let's talk about how they use them.
So I do have a little problem with the original here because obviously, you got your Paul Kersey. He's going out randomly finding guys in the streets and just shooting them. And it's like, wow, this guy's pretty impressive. He's just taking out crime left and right. But all of Paul Kersey's, I guess, targets, we'll call them, they all have knives. None of them have a gun. Ever. So he's just like this old dude with a gun just taking them out. All these guys with just a knife. And it's definitely one-sided. It feels a little cheesy. It's kind of hard to root for somebody when it's just so easy for them, It's you almost feel bad for the criminals because they're like, shit, this guy has a gun, and then they're running away sometimes, and he's still shooting at them. So he's kind of a madman in the original. I don't know. What do you think about that?
No, I agree that there is a bit of madness to him. I find it hard to believe that he's the only person with a gun in the city, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like none of these criminals have a gun. They didn't steal it, or what?
the other thing that makes him sort of mad, as it were, is he's looking for trouble. He's doing things that are dangerous, specifically to try to get someone to try to, rob him or mess with him. And these people who are, I get it, they're criminals, they're bad guys, but I don't know, you broke out a knife, you're like, give me your wallet, and this guy just like shoots you in your buddy. And it's not like he shot him once, he goes back and finishes them off. This guy is like, he's double tapping all over the place. It just feels a little, like you said, it feels one-sided, and it feels off because a lot of times we're talking about like petty crime. I get the knives make it more dangerous, and that there is an element of violence, and if you have something to defend yourself, use it. But he's like literally going out like 3 at night or like going into bad neighborhoods and just waiting for someone to try to get him. It just doesn't feel like these are organic crimes that are happening. He's just out looking for murder.
Yeah, and that's like the punishment doesn't fit the crime. Like some of these guys are beating up a guy, which is it's shitty. But now you're gonna kill them? It's definitely heavier on his crime than what they were doing.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very heavy-handed. It's premeditated. There's no real self-defense argument after a spree of vigilante justice. And yeah, it does make it a little bit harder to root for the guy, even though we know his motivation. He's overdoing his response to some of these more mundane crimes that are happening.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely agree. So, I guess maybe that's why they gave you the focus of Bruce Willis's Paul Kersey in the remake, so that you could maybe understand more why he's doing it. I guess I don't know. Was he so bloodthirsty in the remake? I don't think he was as much in the original.
I think that on the back end he's not, but when he first jumps in, he's definitely overdealing his justice as well. 'Cause I think his first real setup is that carjacker, right?
Yeah.
I get that the car's getting jacked. Did you need to shoot everybody? I don't know about that.
Yeah, it is pretty sloppy too, I suppose. But at least he's fighting guys with guns.
That's fair.
So they definitely even the playing field, even though he does go a little bit overboard in his attacks.
In both films, there's an element of like the city sort of getting behind these characters and people being inspired by the vigilante. Like it's kind of a harder on ramp for me when he shot like a carjacker as like kind of like a bystander. I guess it's a good Samaritan act, and then both movies always try to make the bad guys actual bad guys, criminals. So Charles Bronson is getting robbed by thieves, but Bruce Willis, he like you said, he's got more focus. Again with the happenstance, he's helping that kid, and he tells him about the drug dealer, the ice cream man, And it's just like I don't know, man. Another weird situation where it's like I get that the guy sells drugs and I get that he hurts kids, but you just murdered him. Like it's like you don't really know that guy. You don't really know the full story. And yeah, he seems like a bad guy, but like we have a system in place for this. His vigilante justice doesn't really hold up, which is why I'm glad that they then shifted focus to the actual criminals. So I think if the entire movie was just him going after sort of drug dealers and carjackers, I don't think that movie goes over very well with a modern audience.
It might not go well. Yeah, it might not go over well with a modern audience, but I think it would have been more true to the original, and it would have been an interesting kind of take on it. It's like he's sort of getting his intel from his patients, and it's like sort of this vigilante doctor who's out for vengeance for all these people he's doing surgery on. So he's saving people on one end, and then he's getting vengeance for them at night. It's kind of a cool dynamic. I was just thinking about it as you were talking about it. It's like that might be kind of a good way to go about that movie. At
I
least
guess
you could hang on the doctor thing a little bit longer too. So it could be interesting. And then it's more true to the original because he's just out there just for justice. He's not necessarily out there to avenge his family.
I could see like almost like a Fox sitcom type aspect to that, like he did like a Doctor House, but he was basically Batman, almost like a Dexter, but he's actually a doctor.
Yeah,
That
yeah, like Dexter. Yeah,
that could be interesting, which makes me wish that the movie actually did embrace that skill set more because they just kind of throw that the one thing he's really good at to the wind, and then he's just kind of like randomly like looking things up that he's not good at. It's like, well,
yeah,
why don't we use his skill set?
yeah. So Showtime, call us up because we have Death Wish the series ready for you. But yeah, I now that you're talking about it, I kind of wish that's the direction the movie went in instead of just focusing on the vengeance for his family. Because yeah, it would have been interesting to
Or, or
see that dynamic.
or don't make him a surgeon. It's like I know the first film, like the closest link is that when Charles Bronson's Paul Kersey was in the army, he was in the medical corps, but like they don't really say he's like good at that. It's just kind of like an aside. Whereas like they went all in, and this guy's a surgeon. I don't understand how a surgeon could pull all this stuff off. You know,
But it's
like
it's a cool kind of dichotomy. It's like this guy, and you remember in the beginning of the remake, he had to do surgery on one of the guys that shot a cop, right? So the cop's like, "Oh, you gotta save this guy now too." It's like, "Yeah, it's my job," right? So it could have been an interesting dynamic if like Bruce Willis had to like save even one of the criminals that killed his family or something. And there's a lot of good stuff to draw from that the remake didn't touch upon at all. Is kind of
yeah,
where I'm
just
going. I'm sorry.
no,
I'm just now. I'm just like ranting. Like, yeah, this would be a good series. Again, Showtime, call us up. We got you.
again, like we keep making reference to different things like Dexter and like Breaking Bad and stuff like that. Like there's precedent for that type of show, and it's like if this was maybe if they had more space to work in, maybe if this was serialized, they would have explored that. But the movie just leaves this stuff kind of hanging out there, and it just never gets utilized, which is a shame because I think that like you said, that there was space for this to be a more interesting character just based off of like how he was. We were saying like sort of the methods of attack or like how the different characters attack. Like that would have been interesting if he would have been more medically minded in his attacks.
And just not for nothing, but like you're talking about, like they should have spread this out. There were 5 Death Wish movies. They could have easily spread this out into a few more. They didn't have to put everything in the first one. Would have been so cool. Damn, now I want to see that Death Wish movie. We're getting off topic though.
Not to get off topic because I know we started to kind of drift off a little there. We talked about the methods of attack, but we should sort of talk about how the films actually portray violence. And
Oh yeah.
I found that there's sort of an interesting, almost like switch in the two films. We talked about character motivation, but in that first film, when they show Paul Kersey's family's assault,
Oh yeah.
it's pretty intense,
It's
man.
one of the most violent scenes I've seen in a movie ever.
I mean, across the board, I agree. Just like they take some big swings in that film, and it's interesting that Jeff Goldblum was able to parlay that in the career that he has.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I guess I'll go into the details a little bit. It's pretty nitty and gritty here.
Yeah.
So the family in the original gets assaulted by 3 men. I didn't even know that was the daughter the first time when I saw it. Anyway, it's the mom and daughter in the apartment, and then these three men break in. They claim to be or delivering the groceries from the grocery store. They're obviously not. They break in and they just start attacking the women. They beat up the wife. They just keep calling her mother and beating her up. And then they sexually assault the daughter pretty violently. And they show a lot there.
A lot.
Yeah, they show Jeff Goldblum taking down his pants and pretty much putting his crotch area to her face, right? It's pretty graphic. And they also pull down the daughter's panties and like spray paint her ass. And like, it's really graphic.
It's like today, if you were trying to do that, there'd have to be a trigger warning, you know? Like it's
Yeah.
for the film and the tone, I guess I respect them taking such a bold portrayal of that. Like they keep it really real, which falls in line with what type of city New York was at the time. But I mean, it's pretty intense to have like major characters in the film being assaulted like that, and for how long that scene plays out.
Yeah.
It's pretty jarring.
Yeah, it really comes out of nowhere too, because up to that point you hadn't really seen that much violence in the movie, and you had been spending time with Kersey and his wife, and it was pretty pleasant up until then. Like everything just seemed really happy, and then the turn that the original film takes, it's just a really dark turn. It's as dark as it can get without actually showing you all
Yeah.
that violence. It's incredibly graphic, and if if you're a fan of Heart, don't watch it because it's like I said, it's one of the most graphic scenes I've ever seen in a movie.
Is interesting because like knowing that and having watched the original before watching the remake,
Yeah,
I'm sitting there like, okay, because the remake, at least the setup, you're like, whoa, this is pretty intense. Like the way the criminals come to their house, like they get Bruce Willis's family's information from the GPS in the car.
yeah,
The valet is an active criminal. He brings like three of his friends. They have masks. They have like pretty like hardcore weapons, and you're like, holy shit! Like, how are they going to show this? Because if they did all that in the '70s. What are they going to do here?
yeah.
And it's kind of like fade to black.
They don't really show anything, and I'm just gonna say I'm happy they didn't show anything
I agree.
because, like I said before, in the original, I didn't know that was the daughter. I just thought it was like a friend of the mom,
I thought
and
that as well at the beginning.
yeah,
I think that wasn't really outlined well, and I did
no.
think that it was a friend.
Yeah, and she is a bit older in the original. She's already married, but in the remake, she's in high school. So I'm like, oh
Yeah,
my
good
god,
point.
I don't want to see this high school girl get raped. It was just I wouldn't be able to handle it, and I'm happy they didn't go that direction because not only is she younger, you spend more time with her. You don't see her at
Yeah,
all in the original until the assault scene, pretty much, or the grocery store before the assault scene. So she doesn't have a lot of screen time before she gets assaulted, but you spend a lot of time with the teenage daughter in the remake and just like how her life's turning around, like, oh, I just got accepted to this great college and I'm doing great and like everything else in my life, and it's like, oh my god, I don't want to see this happen to this girl. So I'm kind of glad they did what they did in the remake instead of showing a violent rape.
and like and even with everything that goes on, unless I missed something, but like there's still sort of like ambiguity there. Like they don't really specifically say that she's assaulted in that manner, from what I remember. I could be wrong about that,
In
but
the remake, no, he wants to. One of the criminals wants to, but the other guy's like keeps him in check. It's like you can't do that, and that's kind of
yeah.
where things fall apart for the criminals, and they're forced to shoot the Kerseys at that point. So I don't think anything happens to her except for
I
getting
don't.
shot.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think so either. And like you said, the amount of time because the first a couple minutes of the movie is mostly about the daughter and like
Yeah,
what's going on in her life. She's playing soccer and she's got all these prospects. Everything is going well in her life, and she's about to start a new chapter of her life, which is what makes sort of this whole scene and the assault tragic, and adds more motivation to the Bruce Willis character because you see elements where he gets kind of pushed around in like one of her soccer games, and it pushes him over the top. But I'm glad that they didn't go that violent there, and you would think that sort of going forward, hey, maybe they're gonna pull back some punches in this new film, and there is a complete flip flop in tone between the two movies following that, because I would say after that original kind of assault scene in the first film, violence becomes a little more cartoonish
yeah,
and outlandish. yeah, he's out there and he's shooting people and all that, but it doesn't feel like super real
No, it
after
doesn't.
that point.
And it's not too graphic either because they're never close to each other when he shoots any of the criminals. He's pretty far away, so it's there's nothing like brains exploding or anything in the original. It's mostly guys getting shot in the stomach or the gut or whatever, and they just kind of bleed out the cheesy 70s blood.
Yeah.
And it does look rather cartoonish. And yeah, from that assault to his family, the violence definitely just seems to go down, or just the portrayal of violence. It's definitely never as graphic as that initial assault on his family. It never reaches those standards, at least.
Hell of a way to sort of start the violence in your film. And then I think what the series is a little bit more known for, because after a certain point, from my understanding, those films get pretty ridiculous. And you start to see some of that tone in some of the other vigilante scenes. Now the remake goes completely the opposite direction. They're like, well, look, we're not going to show any women getting assaulted in this movie, but
They didn't even show them getting shot because when you hear the gunshots go off, it's a shot of the house from the outside. So you never
yeah,
actually see them even get shot. So you're not
absolutely.
sure what happened until you get to the hospital later. So they really played down the violence to the women a lot in the remake.
I think that's a smart call for this particular film.
I think so.
Um,
Yes.
One based on when it's coming out, and then there's other elements of maybe what the tone or climate of the movie is that were problematic. I don't think that they needed to have to answer questions about that as well. I think
Yeah.
that there's enough here that they had on their plate that they didn't need to get into that.
Yes. Smart move by the remake. Yes.
Smart move because I think it allowed you to do more things with bowling balls and carjacks.
So
Yeah,
let's
Dan, I think you got to talk about it, man.
let's talk about some of the creative deaths in the remake. So Bruce Willis is doing his doctor thing, and one of his victims, by complete random happenstance, just happens to be one of the men that assaulted his family. It was actually the valet because he recognized the tattoo that the valet had, and the valet had the watch on while he was in the hospital. So Bruce Willis connected the dots. Oh, this guy has my watch. He's had the tattoo. He was the valet. This guy was one of the guys that assaulted my family. So Bruce Willis steals his phone, and he's able to unlock the phone thanks to good old thumbprints, good old iPhones with the thumbprint locks. And this guy took a few pictures. Two of the pictures that he happened to take were of the Bruce Willis's address on his GPS, and I guess his base of headquarters. Really smart if you're a criminal. Geez, I don't remember where I operate out of. Better take a picture of it. So by freak accident, this guy's third picture on his phone is his base of operations. So Bruce Willis is
It's,
like, I guess I'll just go there and see what happens. Wouldn't you know it? It's kind of where the criminals hoard all the stolen items from their victims. And Bruce Willis goes into the back of this bar, or is it a bowling alley? Or is it a bar with a
it's
bowling?
both.
It's both. A bowling alley bar, let's call it that. And he has to go to the back area, which has a man at the bar and an old man watching a very excellent bowling program with women in short skirts bowling. What was that? Because
I don't know what channel that's on.
because I don't have that channel. Anyway, that's not important. Bruce Willis realizes that this guy is not on the up and up. This guy figures out who Bruce Willis is. He's like, the doctor's here. So there's a shootout there. Bruce Willis has a fight with this guy, and there's bowling ball trophies and bowling balls everywhere. And just when you think Bruce Willis is gonna get shot, one of the bowling balls on the shelves was loose and rolls and hits the criminal on the head like fucking Home Alone. What
It's
the fuck, dude?
it's pretty bad.
I
It,
couldn't believe it. I was just like, wait, a random bowling ball saves Bruce Willis's life? Are you fucking kidding me?
I rewound the scene because of how ridiculous it was, and the amount of foreshadowing to the bowling
Yeah.
ball
They really
is
focused on that bowling ball rolling a
nuts.
lot.
You
All
have to
that
like
was missing was the Tweety Bird noises after the bowling ball hit, in my opinion.
pretty much. I mean, it's so weird because like the bowling ball, yeah, I guess it like hits the guy, and then Bruce Willis still shoots him, so he still gets to shoot the guy. So you don't just get to die by bowling ball. Bruce Willis is going to finish the job. I don't know, man. Like that was such a weird way to end that scene.
Again, a complete random thing like helps Bruce Willis out. It's just so random and it's stupid. Overall
Yeah.
stupid. Yeah, that was a head scratcher. Like you said, you rewound it because you're like, did they really do that?
Well, they did it.
But
But
I guess it's an important scene because it's at this scene where Bruce Willis learns the location of another one of the men who assaulted his family. And that's where he goes to the auto body shop to take out criminal number two. This happens to be the criminal that wanted to rape his daughter. And Bruce Willis is pretty smart. The guy's working on the car and kind of telling Bruce Willis to fuck off. But then Bruce Willis just kind of knocks him out before he's able to do anything. And then, kind of at a saw, Bruce Willis sets up this elaborate
oh my god.
thing where the car the guy was working on is now hooked up to a chain that hooked up to a jack that if he releases it, the car will drop down on this guy. And after Bruce Willis gets all the information he wants out of him, the name of the third criminal, Bruce Willis goes, okay, that's good. And the criminal goes, wait, so you're not going to kill me? And Bruce Willis says, no, Jack will. And Bruce Willis proceeds to kick the jack. The chain releases. Car drops on him. Again. Cheesy shit.
Super cheesy. I mean, that line, the delivery, like, I guess it was supposed to be like when it was like clapping in the theater lines. It was like, this is bad.
It was 80s cheesiness in its worst. Yeah.
That was a bad line. One of the things about this scene, besides how cheesy the line is, but, you actually get a chance to see sort of what we were talking about, where his doctor skill set comes into play a little bit here. He hits the guy in the knee, slices him up a little bit, and he's like pouring brake fluid into the wound.
Oh,
And he's
yeah.
talking about how like whatever type of agent or acid or whatever's in there on a major like artery would be or nerve. I forget what it was because it was actually kind of scientific for a second.
But it's really hard for Bruce Willis to say those lines, so we keep those short.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's torturing this guy to get some information, and it's like this is the type of stuff that this film I think needed more of those types of moments where you get to slow down, and remember why you even made the guy a doctor in the first place.
Yeah. Using his knowledge in the medical area to use it against these criminals. That's, again, Showtime, call us. This is our spin-off for the Death Wish series.
It just, which is why, besides the cheesy line, but it's elaborate and you get to see him kind of use some of his skills. It's one of the better scenes, one of the better death scenes because of the setup. I mean,
Well, the setup of this scene is good, but not the actual death.
no, the line is ridiculous and graphic. It's pretty graphic. I mean, when the car falls, it's not like they cut away. They show you brains, man. All that to set up his next big kill. Did you think that you would see Bruce Willis in a hoodie walking through a club, getting into a gunfight?
No, I did not. Definitely seemed to come out of nowhere. Just this old dude in a club with his hoodie. Just how does he get in the club? First of all, just dressed like in a hoodie. Like
Yeah.
I don't know about you. Like even going into a bar, you can't wear a hoodie.
No, you can't.
Let alone some type of nightclub, which definitely has like a security or a bouncer outside. So just that took me out of it a little bit.
Even that, like, a lot of nightclubs too. Like the guy's gonna pat you down
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Some cases. So like the movie could be over right here. Why is this old guy carrying around this gun? Oh, it's the gun from all the murders. Yay, that bouncer solved the vigilante case.
It was a really poorly laid out plan, but it does play into the fact that this guy Paul Kersey doesn't really know what he's doing. So
Yeah.
to pull a big blunder like that plays well into where he's coming from. So I didn't hate it too much, but there was, he wouldn't have gotten in the club in the first place if
Nah.
if the way we're doing it. Like he should have, maybe dressed up, worn a suit or something,
So the Grim Reaper, because of the hoodie and the hood and the Reaper. Okay, the Grim Reaper in this setting, I don't completely hate the club scene because the action is a little interesting. There's a kind of a twist that happens there where the phone he's calling is in a stall, but the guy he's calling isn't there. It's a setup. It's a trap. This ramp up for this villain to go from kind of like street thug to random mechanic that doesn't know what he's doing. So like this dude is like a criminal mastermind. Why was he working with these random sort of goons? Because this last bad guy is very well prepared and very connected when it comes to trying to take Bruce Willis out.
Yeah,
Like,
not random thugs at all. Very career criminals, organized crime, like you said, and pretty well off. He wasn't wearing a cheap suit, you know. He wasn't like the original. These guys were just in fucking shitty garbage gear, right? This guy's wearing a really fucking expensive suit.
he is, and you get this sort of these ominous scenes with him where he's interacting with Bruce Willis outside of the club, and then you get your real Home Alone moment at Bruce Willis's house. So, but before we get into that, we should kind of discuss what the police are doing while all these vigilante killings are happening, because there is a backdrop of the police and them trying to figure out what's going on with these vigilantes. In the original film, there's, in my opinion, more of a political aspect to it, because the crime rate discussion comes into play a lot more, and it's not just the cops, it's like politicians, like governors and stuff like that are involved, and they're saying, wow, the crime rates are down by like half, but we also don't want this vigilante to become some sort of martyr, because a lot of people in the city are rallying around him. You see different little like news segments where old ladies are beating up muggers. You got a construction crew that sees a mugger and they beat him up, and then one of the journalists is like, oh, he had like a broken jaw and two broken ribs. And the guy's like, oh, he must have fell.
That was pretty funny.
I thought that was a funny scene. The investment in the vigilante seems to be a little bit higher in the original, just because it goes beyond the scope of just like the police chief looking for him. It has become an actual political issue, and people in the city at a high level of government are sort of talking about it. I found that to be an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it's not affecting just this vigilante and the criminals, but like you said, other people are being inspired. So they're afraid by arresting him, they would make him some sort of martyr, and they definitely don't want that. So they immediately say, if it's this Kersey guy, let him go. And the head investigator's like, what? He's like, yeah, you heard us. He's like, okay.
Yeah.
So he's prompted to not only sort of ignore him, but he actually helps him out a few times in the movie by giving him phone calls and letting him know that the police are coming, getting rid of the gun at the end, too. There's definitely some interesting backdoor politics we get to see in the original that's not present at all in the remake.
Now, yeah, the original theorizes, posits an idea of what would happen if there was this type of vigilante and what it would do to the crime rate. And there's an idea that the police and government writ large don't want everyone in the city trying to self-police. That's a different problem that they're involved with. But they also like the benefit of having crime rates go down, because I imagine when they run for re-election, without putting to the vigilante, they can say, hey, look, crime rates are down.
Yeah, so they're kind of okay with one vigilante lowering crime, but they're not okay with multiple vigilantes all of a sudden. So that's what they're trying to avoid, multiple or copycats vigilantes.
I like in the remake that we get to see them interact a little bit more. We get some backdrop to the police characters. Dean Norris is really good at being a cop in film and television. You see him like struggling with like health bars and stuff like that. There's a little bit of like comedic things happening with the police that sort of bring some levity to the film. They're kind of honed in. There's different leads that they go down. Like, for instance, we didn't really talk about it yet, but the Grim Reaper's brother comes into play, and we'll discuss that later. But, at one point they're looking at him as a potential vigilante, and they get kind of turned around in the film before they really lock it down. There's not the same motivation to let him go.
No, it's more of like a personal decision that Dean Norris's cop kind of decides. He's like, all right, and we couldn't find him. And it's like, all right, I guess you're free to go. He never really gets the backdoor discussion, like, you got to let this vigilante go. He just sort of decides that, okay, this guy avenged his family, and that seems like justice to me, so I'm good, and I'm going to have a donut.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, because Leonore was like, "Oh, are you satisfied?" It was like, grab on it. Now I'm satisfied. Just a little bit more calmly on the way out. You don't get the same government backdrop in the remake, but you do get more like radio and YouTube, which I thought it was strange, to be honest.
Well, you're
I
getting
guess
into the, I guess, the way the media is handling everything. So the original, obviously, there's no YouTube or anything like that. So it's just a lot of front page headlines and international news versus pretty much just going viral in the remake.
a lot of sway, a lot of DJ sway in this
Oh yeah, I appreciated
remake.
seeing a former MTV VJ in this movie. As much as I rip on the remake, I definitely like what they did more because it's again we're talking about which film is like more of the times, and that's definitely going more into the times, going viral, having somebody take justice into their hands, and then like it being shared on every social media out there as much as possible. Um, Definitely more believable to me than the original, which, like I said, had front page headlines and like international news. Because, like, after Kersey's first victim, the first criminal, random criminal, killed in New York City in 1970, front page headline. Doesn't seem
Yeah,
as believable to me. We're talking about that authenticity that first film have. That's one of the least authentic aspects of it. Is the way the media was covering um, the Paul Kersey character or his vigilante, and just how fast it spread. I think they were trying to convey that like people are being inspired by it like all over the world, but it just didn't seem believable that it would be news like that quickly.
I agree that there's aspects of it where yeah, from the beginning it was like there is no vigilante story, so for it to be front page news
Yeah,
is unbelievable. That's true. I don't know, like I appreciate that you like the there's parts of the radio stuff that I like as well. I don't want to completely go off on it, but I think it sort of brings it into a weird space. Like I don't think that anything overtly like cultural or political is being sort of said about this vigilante, but I don't know. Part of it was the setting in sort of the climate that we're in currently. Where like if there's just like this known white guy, I mean they don't know who he is, but they know his uh his race, as it were, and he's running around Chicago, sort of doing vigilante justice. I know that there was like a mixed reaction on the radio stuff, but I just found it to sort of put the movie in a place I don't think it needed to be. This probably should have stayed more like popcorn film territory, and I think that it may have started touching on different like cultural things that weren't necessarily. I don't think this was the movie to,
to handle it. No,
yeah,
I get what you're saying exactly.
you know,
Yeah, they touched a lot. They said this is a white guy, and a lot of his victims are black people. So they definitely touched on like, is this just a racist guy going out there?
yeah,
Um,
which,
which is
which,
yeah, I get what you're saying because
yeah,
this is definitely not that type of movie to go into those deep
no,
issues.
no, this is like a fun shoot 'em up.
Yeah,
And there's fun things about the radio stuff. Don't get me wrong, I like parts of it, but there's kind of like this. It's not a Greek chorus, but like there's a bit of a debate about his motives and who he is that happens on the radio. But I think that because the setting is kind of like based in like somewhat reality, like it's a fictional character, but it's like a real city and like touches on some real problems. I think that it may get itself a little too close to trying to touch on like cultural stuff that I don't think the movie really is prepared to address. I guess is what I'm saying.
I could see that. Um, I yeah, I still like the how it went viral, but I suppose they could have left out the racial stuff
I
if that
yeah, I think
to clean it up because the movie never really
it doesn't go
it
like
doesn't have the weight to address that in the first place. I could see exactly what you're saying there, yeah, and it
because like
never really addresses it in the long run. It just kind of brings it up and
yeah,
just
because
kind of
like
leaves it there.
to be fair as well, there is an element of that in the first film as well. I don't know if you caught it, but like there's like a dinner party that Charles Bronson's at, and they do talk about like the
Yeah,
fact that most of the victims are black.
yeah,
and this
maybe that's why I wasn't so thrown off by it in the remake because they did kind of touch upon that in the original. Obviously, what's happening now.
I guess because it's
Yeah,
now,
yeah, because
you
of what's
know.
happening now and everything. It's
Yeah, I
pretty.
think like we're not close to it. It's not a deal breaker, but like it takes what I think, like you said, is for me. I'll put it this way: it's like 90% fun. Like
Yeah,
I like the backdrop, I like the elements of it, but then there's like a couple like little lines or scenes where I'm like, eh, you guys can skip this. This isn't this isn't Bruce Willis's fight, you know, because it really doesn't have. Because going back to my original thing, the violence that happens to him has nothing to do with Chicago violence. It's like a fictional organized crime thing. So like for them to try to like maybe touch on like that commentary just felt disingenuous to me because I'm like, you guys aren't even talking about that. So like maybe like skip that element.
right. If it had been, maybe part of the violence.
But I think the character wouldn't allow for it because like his character is like rich and like the dynamic, like
Well,
you mentioned before, isn't the same. Like in a rich person wouldn't be in the part of Chicago where you'd have gang violence issues. Whereas like a rich person would still have problems in New York with violence in the original film. Like everyone was dealing with that problem at the time.
yeah, well, maybe a missed opportunity there for the filmmakers to make it more relevant. Maybe make it somebody that's not really well off and just somebody of the lower class just rising up and standing up for the violence
That,
that's been.
no, you're right. That would have been interesting actually.
That's it's actually one of the things I thought because the remake kind of starts off with like a police radio going off about just
Yeah,
talking about all the various crimes, and I don't know, something in that opening. It was like a cluster of a lot of various things going on the radio, and something in that cluster made me almost think that they were gonna kind of go with like Black Lives Matter kind of angle. I don't know. It's just like I was like, whoa, they're going there with this movie. They didn't, and you
yeah,
definitely don't do it with a white guy as your lead.
yeah. I,
um,
I,
but like
I
after
think you
I,
hit the nail on the head, man. Yeah,
thought that, I was
like
like, oh, that's a missed opportunity. Maybe they should have cast a black guy, and I don't know, he could have done something completely different with it. But I don't want to do what I thought this
no,
movie should have been.
I don't want to stay on this topic too long because I think there's plenty of other stuff to talk about. But like his problem wasn't that problem, and it made it a little confusing because it felt like the movie was trying to make a commentary on that when it clearly isn't. Or if
Mm-hmm.
they thought they were making a commentary on that, they missed the mark.
Yeah. So what you're ultimately saying is like, since they weren't saying anything about it, they shouldn't have said anything
Anything.
at all. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
That's a short note on that.
Right.
The movie isn't saying anything, so
Right.
don't
If
say
you're
anything.
just making a popcorn action movie, just stick with the popcorn action movie formula. Don't try to get too deep into
Yeah,
anything that's happening politically right now.
yeah. It's like if Sway's just like, who's the vigilante? And like it just stops there. Like, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. But like, yeah, man, there's too much crime in the city. And it's like, all right. You know,
Yeah.
it just feels like with the fact that there is a current sort of looming issue in that city. If you're not actually making a movie that like this could have been anywhere. It didn't have to be Chicago at all, but it just happens to be because I think they know it's a setting where an audience would like accept that there's like violence. But again, the violence is so just like the original film, it's cartoony and over the top. It has nothing to do with like real problems.
Yeah.
Whereas like the original film, like we talked about the character development, it all makes sense in that setting, and it is actually kind of like a social commentary. So when they do touch on some of the social issues, it doesn't feel out of place because like the setting and the motivation match the time and place. Whereas this just didn't feel like it was really related to like real current events.
Before we go into the ending, which is pretty much the last main thing we gotta talk about, let's talk about those side characters that Paul Kersey interacts with as he's going through his vigilantism, if that's a word. In the original film, Paul Kersey talks a lot with his son-in-law, played by Stephen Keats, and in the remake, he talks to his brother, played by Vincent D'Onofrio. All right, so let's talk about these side characters really quickly. Reggie, what'd you think? Which side character do you like better?
Oh, I definitely like Vincent D'Onofrio's side character better. Stephen Keats as the son-in-law, ineffective. He's not capable of anything. When he went to Arizona, he's sort of what the cowboy character thinks New Yorkers are like. He's just kind of like nerdy, not that tough, really kind of a pushover. There's not much to him. He just accepts his fate. And you have that juxtaposition where Charles Bronson refuses to accept his fate and he's going to take matters in his own hand. And at a certain point, he like really doesn't really respect his son-in-law at all.
Yeah.
Towards
And
the
pretty
end.
much we don't respect him.
Oh yeah, no, he doesn't respect him, and I sure don't either. Because like the guy's just like, oh, I talked to the doctors, and geez, why don't you just let things go? He's calling him dad the whole time, and he doesn't. There's no weight to him. He's just there, and he's in a way he's in the way. In the remake, the brother, I like that he's got kind of like this sort of shady thing going on. He's asking for money. He's always in like money problems. Cops come, they look for him at a certain point because like he's at least on the police radar for like known criminals, which was an interesting reveal. I think the movie could have done more with that, maybe tied in some of the criminal activity that happened back to the brother. But it was cool that he had like sort of a street thing going on, and I felt like he was just a more influential character, even though he's in the film possibly less than the son-in-law, but he matters when he is there.
Yeah. Uh, I kind of thought that too, going back to his checkered past, that I thought he did have something to do with the assault on Paul and his family. So I thought there was going to be almost a twist that maybe he was the third guy or something.
That would
Movie
be
definitely doesn't go that way. Anyway, it's just an okay thing to not have that as the twist, but I like that they kind of left his, I guess his background a little bit ambiguous. You weren't sure just how on the up and up he was, because when you first are introduced to Vincent D'Onofrio's character, he's like asking Bruce Willis for like a couple $1,000s. He's like, I just need a couple thousand for this thing, man. It's like, okay, that
yeah.
sounds legitimate. So I was a little suspicious of him the whole movie. And then I thought at one point that he was going to turn his brother in. And then I thought at another point that maybe he's going to take the fall for his brother. So it's like, he kept me guessing. So I really appreciated just his character and his presence. And he was definitely a lot more interesting than the son-in-law in the original, who pretty much just gave us updates on Paul Kersey's daughter and just like, oh, now she's not talking to me. Now I can't touch her. Now our life is terrible. And he's just a whiner the whole time, and nobody likes a whiner.
It's so true. Nobody likes a whiner at all. And to your point, you're right. Like there's so many different elements on Remake where you don't really know what's going on with the brother, whether he's taking the fall or what's happening. I don't want to say missed opportunity. What they did with him was fine enough, but like if his money problems would have been sort of tied in to the fact that like this thing happened to the Grim Reaper, that would have been interesting. That would have been a place they could have explored. Like you said, if he would have turned out he was one of the guys, that would have been fascinating as well. The character, it's good to have him because there's some edge to him that kind of ties the Grim Reaper into the criminal world, at least to a little extent. But I don't think they take it far enough in the film. But like, it doesn't hurt to have him there.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. He's definitely better than the son-in-law. I liked him for like kind of the mystery, like what's he gonna do? What's the reveal with him? Ultimately, there's no reveal with him, so it's kind of a letdown, but still more interesting than the son-in-law overall.
Absolutely. I guess since we are talking about the son-in-law, we could talk about sort of the differences between the daughters in both films. There's a pretty profound difference in the way these characters sort of deal with their trauma,
Yeah.
which I guess makes sense based on how traumatic that early scene is in the original film.
Yeah.
Like I said, we were just watching the movie and we were disturbed by it. So the character, I mean, basically she's done. She's catatonic. She does is not prepared to interact in the world. She um, clearly has like post traumatic stress. She has nightmares and screams at night, and she's more or less once this terrible thing happens to her, her life as she knows it is over, and there's not really a real interaction that's happening with that character after that.
Yeah, she's pretty much just catatonic at that point. She's pretty much just a vegetable. They put her in a hospice, and we don't really hear from her. Again, we just hear from the son-in-law little updates on her, but she's pretty much a non-factor for the rest of the movie. You know, it's understandable from what happened to her, but it's not like what's happening to her is affecting our main character. He's not like torn up that, oh my god, my own daughter is just like her life is ruined. That scene
No,
never happens. And I don't
no,
know if Bronson could pull it off, but that scene never happens.
like I said, that scene doesn't happen. His motivation early on, yeah, it's affecting him early. But speaking of, you were talking about the music in the synopsis, before the synopsis, at a certain point, he doesn't even care anymore. He's like throwing on records, like beating guys up with socks. And like, I feel so alive. And like, Bronson never really comes back to his motivation when it comes to his daughter. She's more or less out of the picture, and he's just now obsessed with being a vigilante. And maybe part of that is because of the son-in-law. I guess it's kind of like the son-in-law's problem.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got. Like, hey, she's your problem. My wife died. I'm gonna listen to records and paint.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe because that tough guy attitude of the time, the son-in-law couldn't like figure it out or get his wife to snap out of it. Ron's like, all right, whatever, you guys figure it out. I'm doing my thing. It's interesting. I don't know. Her presence when she is in the movie actually kind of puts things back in perspective. It makes things a little bit more depressing,
Yeah,
to be honest, because
but
she's really struggling.
yeah, I guess the problem is like he's not struggling. If he
That,
was showing any signs of like, I don't know, just like helplessness, that like, man, I couldn't have been there for my wife and my daughter, and like look what's happened to her. Like she's so young, she had her whole life ahead of her. And if that had driven him at all to do anything, even like just cry, then it would have paid off. But since, like you said, he kind of just hands her off to the son-in-law, like that's your problem. Like he doesn't say that explicitly, but he doesn't really care. I never see any signs of him caring for her. So, yeah, she's just really a non-factor after a while.
yeah,
And then even when you get more updates about her, you don't care as an audience member because it's not
no,
affecting Kersey at all.
doesn't affect back in the film. Which,
No.
to your point earlier, when at the beginning, you could think that that was just like the friend of the wife. It didn't really matter if his daughter was there or not. The fact that his wife died, I think, was
Yeah.
enough motivation that we probably didn't need all of the violence that we had originally because the daughter just is after that mostly a non-factor. Not sure why we need her or the son-in-law. They're just kind of there. I think the wife dying was probably enough motivation given what we saw in the film.
Yeah. The censored TV version where you just see the wife get killed and not really the daughter assaulted, that would have been fine too.
Yeah, that it would have been. Whereas in this remake, you need the daughter because even when he's hanging out with his wife, even the way the characters are introduced, like in the original Death Wish, you see Charles Bronson and his wife in Maui, like, and they're interacting. They have a whole rapport. Not as much interaction with Bruce Willis's wife in this new film. It's mostly the story of the daughter and like all of her prospects and where she's going in life.
Hmm.
And when this thing happens, like he's coming at this. Yes, his wife has died, but he's coming at this as more of like a dad. Like I'm a father. I'm a father figure, protector, and in this moment, I wasn't able to protect my family. And my daughter's still here, and while she is still here, I'm getting revenge. The cool thing about the daughter in the remake is, though she's not necessarily catatonic, but she is in a coma for a large portion of the movie. And by the end, she's coming back around. She's still interacting, and I think it's nuts that this film throws her right back in.
The exact situation.
And I've been home for I don't know 17 hours. Well, strap in, sister, because It's round two.
And they got machine guns this time.
Yeah.
But just going back to your point, as you were talking, yeah, I realized that the original is more like a vengeful husband, and the
Hmm.
remake's more like a vengeful dad. Now that after you said what you said, because yeah, he doesn't really seem to mourn Elizabeth Shue too much. Who's his wife, by the way? She really doesn't do much, but yeah, he's definitely just more protective of his daughter and like so mad about like what happened to her. I mean, it makes sense. You want to protect your living
Yeah.
relative who survived an
Oh, of
attack,
course.
but we definitely get uh, more between Bruce Willis and his daughter, and we get more of Charles Bronson and his wife
Absolutely.
in their respective films.
I think that there was a missed opportunity with the daughter in the remake when there was this scene where she was talking about like training and like defending herself.
Yeah, I was
I
waiting
was
for
like,
that
I thought
too.
she was gonna do something in that first scene, like when the guy was like, "Oh, go check in the garage," and the dude was trying to like assault her. I thought she was gonna do something there because like you like set it up that she capable.
Yeah, she can defend herself. She knows
I
call
oh
that
Krav Maga.
Krav Maga. I don't know how to say these things.
Yeah, no, yeah, Krav Maga, and she's ready to go to NYU because don't let any boys try to come to her dorm room because she'll mess them up. If you're gonna have that line and have her do something,
Yeah,
it's like you showed us the bowling ball, like
like she didn't do
um,
anything during the first assault. She didn't do anything during the second assault.
she's and understandably so. She's like a victim, but the problem is you
You introduced this thing, and we're
right.
expecting it to pay off at some time, and it never pays off.
It's like if you have Neo saying I know kung fu,
And then he just
then
reads
you
books
better
the
do
rest of
some
the
kung
movie. We're a little upset.
you know. You got to see some kung fu, man. So I think that that was a missed opportunity, but this character clearly is a much more influential and stronger character than the daughter we have in the original film.
Yeah, definitely. We've been talking about that ending a lot in the remake, so maybe we should transition to the endings in both films now. All right, so the ending of the original definitely not as action packed as the remake. Well, I guess it starts kind of with an action scene. So Paul Kersey does have a shootout with some criminals, not the criminals that attacked his family. Again, just kind of random criminals. He's out there just fighting crime on his own, and he passes out when he's about to fight the very last criminal. And he wakes up in the hospital. Before he wakes up, the lead investigator, the lieutenant, it's brought to his attention that the gun is on the scene. That, oh, this Paul Kersey has the gun, the same gun that's been used in the
Right.
previous crimes. And he just says, all right, you never found this gun. Just let it go. As to his previous orders behind the scenes, that we don't want this vigilante. It was explicitly said if it's Paul Kersey, we don't want him. And
Yep.
it turns out it is Paul Kersey. They don't want him. It's the media reports that, oh, this guy is the guy. This is our vigilante that we wanted. But then it's they say no, because the lieutenant has a conversation with Kersey. He's like, look, you either leave right now and this is over, or I gotta arrest you. And Paul Kersey just, okay, I'll leave. And then after that, the lieutenant goes to the media and says, "This isn't the guy. This is just another victim of the criminals. We still don't know who the vigilante is. He's still out there." And then Paul Kersey does leave, and where does he go?
To tie it back in the remake, he goes to Chicago.
Oh, he goes to Chicago. Great. He goes to Chicago. He's at the airport with a client, just introducing, "Hey, welcome to Chicago." And then, of course, as soon as Kersey gets there, he sees a woman getting assaulted at the airport, and he helps her up and get her possessions. And as he's helping her up, the criminals look back at him as they're running away and laugh at him, and he just kind of points at them with his hand, kind of making a gun shape with his fingers and just going, and movie ends. Pretty cool ending. I
Pretty
kind of
cool.
like that. The remake has that same ending, but before it ends that way, like we
Home
said,
Alone 3.
oh, was that?
I said Home Alone 3.
Home Alone 3. Jesus. Well, let's go back to the hospital because, like we said, the daughter comes out of the coma, and this is after the failed nightclub shooting. So Paul's able to escort his daughter out of the hospital in a wheelchair, and as they're entering the elevator, one man reaches in and says, "Hold that elevator for me." And wouldn't you know, it's the exact same guy that he was trying to kill the night before.
Yep.
And this guy's name's Knox. He knows that who Paul Kersey is, and he's really testing the limits there. He's going, "Oh, what you in here for? Oh yeah, you got assaulted? Oh geez, that's a shame. I got shot. Like who says that? That's like really
Yeah.
fucking weird." Uh, and Bruce Willis knows though. He knows, so he's like in his mind, he's preparing. He's preparing for that night. So, like you said, Home Alone 3. Maybe you want to take it here. You can maybe
Yeah.
describe it better than me.
I'll take it here. Just to set up the Home Alone style thing. After the hospital scene, we do see Paul go back to the preposterously named gun store.
Oh, Bethany.
I forget what it was,
I forgot the
but
name of the store, but I know that I'm pretty sure the clerk's name was Bethany because she was in the commercial too.
he gets himself a gun. He buys a gun legally, and it's all part of sort of a plot twist that's coming up. But yeah, he gets prepared for God knows what's going to happen at his home. Dude, when you want to talk about movies ramping up, this movie, he's at home, can tell that there's an intruder, stuffs his daughter basically in
The crawl
the crawl
space.
space, crawl space between the stairs, tells her not to move.
Dad, what's happening? Just go in the crawl space.
Crawl space. I know you just awoke from a coma in a traumatic event. Instead of like, if I know they're coming, instead of like relocating you, I know how I'm gonna handle this.
This is my house. I have to defend it. Home Alone. Bam.
Home Alone. So one guy comes in with a gun. Wouldn't you know it? Look at that bed. There's someone clearly in it. Shoots it up, and it turns out it's a bunch of pillows.
What? That's never been done in a movie before. I didn't see that coming, Reggie. I thought Bruce Willis was dead.
And you know what else you didn't see coming? That guy realizing that someone's in the shower, and they clearly aren't reacting to gunshots. They're not making noise. But I'm gonna go check out this steamy shower. And oh shit, it's the Grim Reaper, and he shoots him in the side of the head. Villain number 2 hears that gunshot, and he's like, "Let me go check on it." And there's his friend who's dead. And wouldn't you know it, Paul Kersey's hand comes from under the bed, picks up the dead guy's gun, shoots that guy. That guy's dead. Paul Kersey runs downstairs because he doesn't know where the other villains are, tells his daughter, "Don't move, stay in the crawl space." And he checks his basement where he comes face to face with Knox. The daughter comes out and she's now in danger. And Knox has Paul dead to rights. But luckily he installed some sort of compartment for an assault rifle, which, since we are making political commentary, the fact that he was able to get that assault rifle in this country. And then, he Knox basically threatens his daughter's life by saying, "Have you ever heard someone burn alive?" Which is like, of course he hasn't. No one has. You're crazy. And Paul shoots him up, and his daughter lives through another traumatic event, and apparently everything's fine.
Again, it's just like he just happened to be in the right spot where that assault rifle was. Another complete random happenstance that helps our hero win the day.
He's always getting helped. I like the kind of crazy Home Alone style ending. Like when his hand came from under the bed, this is nuts. From the human aspect, the daughter, I'm just sitting there like, how the hell is she going to do a semester at NYU after like being the victim of 2 very violent crimes? Just kind of like sit on the couch and they're all like okay with it. Everybody's moving on, and I just found that to be very unrealistic.
Yeah. Afterwards, she's like fine in NYU. Like, yeah, just easily adjusted. I'm fine, Dad. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'm good. Not traumatized at all.
She'd be famous. You want to talk about going viral? The like 2 assault chick, like
The 2 assault chick.
they came back for another time. And then you have that very interesting interaction with Bruce Willis and Dean Morris, where he's like, "So wait, so you're telling me that wound on your hand that's almost healed, you got?" He's like, "Yep." And you telling me that gunshot was from yesterday? Yep. and basically just ends with, Dean knows what's going on. He's like, and, you had these guns that he just recently purchased. So he had basically a cover and an alibi. And Dean asked him about the Glock. And he said, "I used to have a Glock and now I don't." and it's kind of a play off of that original movie where he's saying, "I know you're the vigilante. You're not going to do vigilante stuff no more, right?" And he's like, "I'm not." And it's like, "All right, moving on." As we mentioned earlier, a bit of a strange turn because I just don't see Dean's motivation for letting that go. Well, maybe he's made this calculation that maybe trying to like litigate famous surgeon whose daughter was attacked twice. Maybe that's not going to go well in the media or something. I don't know what his motivation is, but he lets it go.
Yeah, I'm not really sure exactly why. I guess he's just a good cop, and like you said, he knows Bruce Willis did it, but the, vengeance, justice has been served, so maybe he's letting him go because now the crimes are gonna stop. The Grim Reaper will no longer be around. I don't know exactly why he lets him go, but you're not really going to end that kind of an action movie with, okay, you're under arrest, and now you're going to spend the rest of your life in jail. You have to kind of have that kind of cop-out ending in
Oh
this
yeah,
type of action movie. So it wasn't like, what? He's letting him go? It was definitely like, okay, he's letting him go. Why not? Sure. A bowling ball fell on that guy's head before. I don't give a fuck anymore.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean it's a serviceable ending. I think that you do get clearly a more action oriented film in this remake, and when they do their big sort of set piece action sequences, they are impressive.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
They're not bad at all. So I was pretty impressed by that last scene, even though, like I said, the Home Alone thing is a joke I have to make because it feels like it. They're going through the house and like all these traps are set. Um, but no, it's actually a pretty decent, sequence. I enjoyed it.
No, it's good action. No, that's one of the things like that the original kind of lacked. The action sequences were pretty poor in that original. It's a guy just shooting a gun at another guy like point blank range, and it's all like one shot, and it's pretty lackluster in its action. But there's lots of like fancy quick cuts and some intense close ups in the remake. So the action's definitely good in the remake. Don't get me wrong there, but it's when you think about it, Reggie, it's when you start thinking that
Yeah,
seems pretty absurd.
this is one of those films where you want to think less. The less you think about it, the more it works, and the more you think about it, the less it works. Which is true of both films to an extent, but I think that sometimes the remake tries to like, I don't even know if it tries to. I think that sometimes just like the way things are happening to the character and how he's just like finding things out makes you say, wait, how would that ever happen? Whereas like the original, all right, yeah, there's this guy kind of running around the city looking for trouble, more or less, and he finds it.
Yeah.
Much easier. Would you say like from the endings? I also find the original to, from the story that's actually being told, it makes a little bit more sense, and maybe it says something bigger about revenge. Probably not based on how many films they made after it. But if you looked at it as a standalone movie, maybe it shows you that like nothing that he did actually made anything better.
Yeah, that's kind of what I liked about the original. That maybe he wanted to avenge his family, but he never explicitly says that. You never get a scene where he's like doing it for his family. Maybe he's hoping he happens to catch the same guys that killed his wife and raped his daughter, but he's kind of just out there for whatever. And like we said, keeping it authentic, keeping it real. If you were just a normal dude with like your 9 to 5 and you just decide to go fight crime, the odds of you finding the actual people that did this random crime, which it very much was in both films, are so small that if you find it, it doesn't seem real at all. So I like that the original went that way, that he never found the people that attacked his family, that they're so insignificant that their names in the credits are Freak 1, Freak 2, and Spray Can. They don't even have names. They're so random. But like the remake, it just, again, it goes for that Hollywood ending. Okay, this man, his family was wronged, so he has to get vengeance and kill exactly everybody who wronged him. And he does, and he gets away with it happily ever after. Even his daughter's fine. It's just, it's too neat of a package. I liked how messy the original was.
The original feels like a story about a real guy.
Yeah. Because that's what it
Um,
is. It's a regular guy whose life gets turned around after his family gets assaulted. So, what would a real guy do? Would a real guy be able to find exactly who did this and be able to exact revenge without getting arrested? Or would he just try and kind of fail, but maybe get away with it at the same time?
get away for a little bit. The limitations of reality, he's caught dead to rights,
Yep.
and they let it go because of what he's become symbolically in the city. And they also understand his motivation. So they let him go on that side because he in a way he did them a solid, but they can't let him continue to act outside of justice. This remake, it's like I don't know, man. Like you would need a SWAT team to do some of the stuff that I mean, he like literally takes down an entire like crime ring, and I guess that makes. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but it's fun. It's a fun run in times where it's trying to tie back into this film that's more or less about like an everyman. I don't think that this film does enough with the character to explain his ability to do this. Like, and there's very minor things that you need to do to make this more acceptable. And the original film actually did that. They were like, "Man, he's in the army." I was like, "Okay, if you tell me that, tell me the guy's in the National Guard." Like, all right, I got it. Like,
No, they just said, hey, he's Bruce Willis. Oh, okay.
it's like I don't need much more explanation than that. He was a medical surgeon in the army. That note before he became like a famous surgeon in like Chicago, like that note helps me. And I accept way more bullshit if you give me that narrative. But like if you don't, then I start asking questions that take you out of the fact that hey, this is just a fun little revenge flick. That's it. But when you try to bring that human element into it, but you don't do the groundwork to make it more human, it falls flat. And I found the ending to be jarring because of that, because it felt like there was some reality in this film, and you just want me to accept that like this girl is going to be able to just live her life after these traumatic events. I find that hard to believe.
Maybe we should get into the verdicts because it sounds like we're kind of there. All right, so let's get into the verdicts then. Reggie, should this remake of Death Wish have been made?
This remake should not have been made. If it was a standalone film without the Death Wish title, I'm more okay with it. Like, there's nothing wrong with action movies like this. We found success with revenge films and movies like Taken and things along those lines. But the motivation in films like that are a little bit more apparent. This movie takes a film that is a shoot 'em up that touched a nerve. It talked about a time in this country in a place that was dangerous, and there was a human element to the original film that sort of elevated beyond how ridiculous the subject matter is and how ridiculous the series became. This film is sort of just ridiculous the whole time, but then tries to like pull you back in with realism. And I think that by doing that, it hurt the film. So this remake, though probably a decent action movie to watch, because you threw the Death Wish moniker on it, takes it down a peg for me because the other film is spectacular is not the right word, but it's a better film with the same subject matter. So the remake doesn't need to exist.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise, I'm in the same boat as you. This remake should not exist. I don't even know where to start with my problems with the remake. I guess the original, as silly as it seemed, going back to that word you kept saying before, like authentic, it definitely had that sense of realism. Like, if a guy is wronged and he just decides to take matters into his own hands, it would probably unfold like this, especially if your family falls to a random act of violence. The odds of you actually finding those responsible are so low, and just you going out there and hoping to find them, but you never actually find them, that seems realistic. And the whole original stays in that sort of area of reality. I mean, it might get a little contrived with the backdoor politics and everything, but yeah, this guy ultimately, who doesn't know really how to fights crime, isn't able to get revenge, and it was timely, like we said. New York was kind of, or was dangerous in the 70s and 80s. Just gave a real portrayal of what would happen to a man under these circumstances, but it was, of its time. It spoke to what was happening in the 70s, and the remake really missed the ball on like all that. It had to be about getting revenge, and he was able to get revenge again. Like, he didn't have any training, but he still happened upon all these clues and was able to figure everything out and just avenge everybody. It was insane. And like we said, it's supposed to be an everyday man, and then you cast Bruce Willis in it. I think that was part of the problem. We just go back to it being like of its time. Like, it didn't cover on anything. Like I'd said before, in the opening, I thought they might cover on maybe Black Lives Matter or possibly mass shootings, which are both problems in this country right now. And just like the original was timely, I thought the remake might be timely, but it wasn't. And it, like you said, it's just pretty much a popcorn shooter. It really missed the mark, and there are better revenge films out there. You had mentioned Taken. I was thinking Taken also. Like, this was done much better in Taken. Even John Wick did it better. And when there's already good revenge films out there, you really have to bring it. And just putting a Death Wish title on it doesn't, raise your film at all. I just really didn't like what they did in the remake at all, especially because it just seemed so, like, again, authentic and real in the original, and it was just totally lost to this overly produced Hollywood production in the remake.
More or less, just to sum it all up, is that the original film takes an improbable story and puts it in a probable setting. This film takes an improbable story, keeps it in an improbable setting, but then like tries to borrow from like real backdrops from time to time. And it just doesn't come across as, like we said, authentic. It doesn't come across as real. And we shouldn't expect that from a film, but because of the source material and some of the choices made in the film, it's like you're trying to make it real in some places and you're trying to make it fake in other places. Like,
yeah,
pick a theme.
Right, you're keeping it really like tense and real, and then you're playing like Bruce Willis practicing to Back in Black. It's like, what kind of film are you trying to be? Yeah, I guess it just really lacks the identity that the original had.
I think it's the biggest problem, because like when you look at something like John Wick, which is just completely ridiculous, but like we know that's the point. Like, that's the entire point. And it's like a movie like that stays on point and stays in its themes and the universe that's building. This movie probably would do better to be in a fictional place or like an undescribed city. I think they make it Chicago because Chicago's where he ends up in the original, and then they go to New York at the end, so it's kind of like flip-flop, which is a nice touch, except for the fact that like you made it modern day Chicago, and he has to like deal with modern Chicago problems in a movie that's not about that. Yeah, so I guess we didn't like the new Death Wish.
Not at all. I hope they don't make 4 more like they did the original, because I don't want to have to do a retro versus remake for Death Wish 2.
I don't think the film did well enough to like bring like a Bruce Willis back on. Maybe they'll try to like reboot the reboot, but you know how that goes.
Oh god. On that note, should we pick the next episode?
Absolutely.
Okay, so for the next episode, you want to do a comedy? Let's do Bad News Bears.
Bad News Bears. Okay, yeah.
Walter Matthau versus Billy Bob, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely down for that movie. Yeah, let's watch Bad News Bears.
All right, cool. Well, sports comedy action at us.
Thanks for listening. I'm Reggie Parker at RP Comedy on Twitter and Instagram, rpcomedy.com.
And I'm Dan Bulick. You could find me at Console Wars Guys on Twitter, Instagram, and we also have a Facebook page, facebook.com/retro versus remake. Follow us there. All right, well, thanks for listening. Let us know what you thought. Did you agree? Did you disagree? This has been another episode of Retro versus Remake.